Happy Tuesday, everybody. And today I've got the owner of Rek Broadheads, Matt Tagget, on to talk about his North Dakota slob of a deer that he just killed a couple weeks ago. Welcome to the Fall Podcast. I am your host, Aaron Blasey, and this is episode 130. And today, like I said earlier, we've got Matt Tagget on from Rek Broadheads to talk about his absolute giant of a whitetail from North Dakota a couple weeks ago. He went out there. He's been going out there for 5 years now, and he finally connected on his biggest deer to date. So really cool story. We also get into Rek Broadheads a little bit. I did actually record with Matt back in February when Rek went live, when he launched Rek. So maybe go back and look at that as well. Good interview with him there. A little update on my stuff going on right now. It's, we're 2 days away. 2 days away from the opener here in Michigan. Cannot wait. Can't wait to get in a bow stand. And Justin, I did just get a text from Justin not too long ago. He is back home and well. He's actually not on this episode, but he will be on the episodes coming up soon. So I appreciate all the support. I'm going to get over this interview with Matt, and hopefully you guys have a good rest of your week. Get out there and hunt. Hopefully you guys are successful. So thank you guys, and here's this interview with Matt. All right, welcome back to the Fall Podcast. Today, I've got Matt Tagget on today from Rek Broadheads. Matt, welcome back to the podcast, and I can't wait to pick your brain about this recent North Dakota trip that you killed. I think it's your best buck ever, wasn't it?
It is my best buck ever, and I appreciate you having me on and look forward to telling the story.
Yeah, for sure, man. You and I have been bullshitting a little bit here and there on or off record, basically, just texting back and forth, and I've been hounding you about getting some practice heads up here so I can shoot these Reks, man, this year. And I'll tell you what, I want to lead off with this first. I mean, and I've told you before, I've been a rage guy, for the last 11, 12 years. Rage has been the broad, and I'm not going to lie to you, I really like the Rage Broadheads. It's always treated me really well, but I'll tell you what, these Reks that you have, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the podcast with me, and I think I can call you a friend now, but dude, these things so far as accuracy test, and I mean, like, second to none. Like, these things, I've been shooting them 55 yards is the farthest I've shot them so far, and I mean, field point accuracy, I really dig them.
And that was one of the biggest things we wanted to go for too, was just accuracy on those. During the whole testing and design phase, we were shooting out of those. I think it's the Raven R29, that real fast crossbow. It shoots like 450 feet per second. We were launching these suckers 100 yards, and just driving tacks with them, and that's when I knew they were going to pass that test for sure. But this will be personally my third season shooting this broadhead. They've only been on the market since February here, so this will be most people's first year using them. But we've been having just some extremely good results with them, and it's honestly a little humbling to see it all come together and see how well they're working.
Yeah, well, everything that I've been seeing from social media and forums and stuff like that, I'm part of a couple forums that I watch closely. The Rek Broadhead is taking a pretty good toll. Like, people, I don't mean that in a bad way, like, people are digging it. They really enjoy it, and you see a lot of, social media in general, I see a lot of people, kill photos and everything with this broadhead up, the expandable. I haven't seen a lot with the fixed blade, but majority of the expandable, people are loving them, it seems like.
Yeah, it really seems that way. I mean, we're getting pictures almost daily now that we're rolling into season here. Seasons are starting to open up all across the country, and it's just really cool to see. I mean, every time somebody sends me a picture, it kind of makes me smile just to see them really working so well and stuff. It really does. But no, we're having really good luck with them, and this is our first product we've ever launched, and this is a brand new brand that we've built here, and we're just kind of learning as we go on how to build a brand and how to build a business and stuff. But we're picking away at it, and we're having fun with it, and just seeing where it goes here. We're going to keep innovating, and we got some other products we want to come out with, and just chipping away at it through the COVID days here. Things have been kind of tough this year, but we're going to be at ATA this year, and we're looking to get these things in stores and keep moving forward.
Nice, man. Well, hopefully I'll be able to knock one down this upcoming week. We got Michigan's opener coming up, and I'm super pumped about it. The weather, you and I were just talking about it, the weather is just shaping up nicely. I mean, we had a little bit of rain come through, but, I mean, dropping temps, pressure's rising, cold front. I mean, you do kind of got to think, though, it is October 1st. Don't get too excited, but It's hard not to get too excited when 2020 can suck a big fat one, because
You ain't kidding.
It's been a pain in the ass year, man. So I'm just ready to get the hell out of the house, get my bow in the hand, and go after some whitetails.
I hear you, and it's surely looking to be one of the best opening days or the best opening weeks I've seen weather-wise in quite a while. So looking forward to that, and I think there's gonna be a lot of nice deer killed here over the next week.
I hope so, man. I really do. Well, before we do get into this story, because I really want to talk about this, there's one thing I want to ask you about the Broadhead, and I don't know if you've ever been asked this. Maybe you have. Hell, maybe I've even asked you, and I can't remember. But what is your favorite thing about the Rek Broadhead, the mechanical? If you had to pick one thing, what's your favorite thing about it?
Ooh, I only get to pick one thing?
One thing, that's it.
Okay. I guess I would probably have to say it's one thing in general, but overall, just the beefy design of it for a mechanical. We have thicker blades than just about any mechanical out there at 39 thousandths thick. There's a few of them that are that thick, but I mean, that's kind of the industry leading thickness for blades. It's got that big beefy tip on it, and the whole ferrule's beefed up, and it's just really a well-built, put together broadhead that's designed just to hold up, to bone and in hard shots.
Okay. I do like, I mean, a lot of people like just the tip, but I do like the beefy tip on that as well, because it just looks like it's a bone crusher. Honestly, it looks like it'll go through a lot of stuff, and like I said, I just can't wait to put it through the test. I'm gonna wreck them this year. I'm gonna go with it.
I'm really looking forward to seeing some pictures coming through the first time you wreck one.
I hope so, man. Well, good deal. Let's get into this. So you and your dad just did a trip. Was it early September?
Yeah. It was opening day was September 4th. It was actually my cousin and I.
My
okay. This was my fifth year going out there. My dad has been on some previous trips out there with me and stuff. But This year I took my cousin. It was his first time, and opening day I believe was the 4th. We got there 2 days early before season to do our scouting and stuff like that. But yep.
Okay, so you went out to North Dakota, and what was the plan? Now, were you guys on public land, private land? Do you own land out there, or was it like a buddy, or how did that shape out?
It's all private land that we hunt, and it's actually a really big farm. I honestly don't even know how many acres. It's in the thousands. A guy that we had met out there our very first year we went out there hunting 5 years ago, didn't have a clue what we were doing, just went out and started knocking on doors, met a farmer, and actually got denied initially that we could not hunt. He deer hunts, and he's crazy about his whitetails. He loves deer, so I was managing deer and stuff like that, and told me no, I could not hunt. Well, I think he ended up feeling bad for us and ended up calling me back that evening and told me that it would be okay if we could go and hunt his land. And for the past 5 years, we've really kept in contact. I mean, we're always texting back and forth, and we've been hunting that same farm and had some really good success off from it.
All right, so you go out there, knock on doors, you get a no, and this guy feels bad for you, so he says yes. That's what you're telling me?
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's at least that's my take on it. I mean, we drove, it's like 1,200 miles, I think, out there, and I just figure he was pretty much just feeling bad for us. Like, these guys drove all the way from Michigan, and they have nowhere to hunt. So,
Was your plan to go out there and just knock on doors, or I mean, were you hunting public land and was just like, we're here, let's knock on doors?
Yeah, I mean, originally, there's like a house out there that a guy here in our hometown owns, and he rents it out for duck season, and they go duck hunting every year, and he was always telling me about all these big bucks he sees out there and stuff, and they hunt a lot of the I think they're called waterfowl management areas or something like that, and we were planning on hunting some of those areas, and he kind of tipped us to some good spots to check out where he had seen deer in the past, and they just weren't really looking that hot when we got there, so we just started pounding and knocking on some doors and calling some people and stuff like that off of Onyx, and got lucky. I mean, we literally hit the jackpot on this farm. Like, the landowner is super friendly. He he really likes us for some reason. I've been told by some of the locals, like, he will not let anybody even squirrel hunt on his land. But for
Really?
some reason, yeah, we got lucky enough, and for 5 years, I mean, we've kept in contact and killed some really nice deer off his place.
Man, that's really cool. So I guess break it down. You said it's a lot of acres, don't really know the total, but like, is it, I've been to the Dakotas, it's been a while, but a lot of it that I've been to has been, I shouldn't say flat, but not a lot of trees where I've been. Is that kind of what it is, like draws, river bottom, stuff like that? Or like what's the terrain layout like?
It's really, really wide open. I mean, there's we're in the eastern part of the state. There is very few trees. I mean, there's no really blocks of timber, I guess. It's more just, tree lines or abandoned homesteads that kind of have trees grown up. And I've actually killed deer right out of, right next to somebody's old house, I guess, before. It grows up in there and stuff, and the deer like laying in that stuff. But it's just all ag fields and wide open landscape, and kind of some rolling hills, not really any creek bottoms or anything like that. But there's a lot of, they call them sloughs out there, or ponds, I guess. If you get on Google Earth and you look at an aerial image of North Dakota, and it's probably why it's so popular for duck hunting, is there's just pothole ponds everywhere. And most of those ponds are surrounded by cattails, which is actually one of the major bedding sources for these whitetails out there.
Okay, so they're bedding up on these sloughs, and what is the best way, to get on these bucks in the early season like this? Is it, your prototypical bed to food, like find out, glass them from a distance, figure out where they're bedding, figure out where they're feeding, and then just kind of intercept them? Was that your game plan, or, was it a little more complex than that?
That was kind of our game plan for this year, was to get there a few days before season and just get up, way up on a hill away or something, and just glass fields and see, what sloughs they're laying in, and where exactly they're feeding. And it was really weird this year because they had a really wet spring and a ton of snow early on last fall, to where a lot of their crops were never harvested throughout the winter. And even into the spring, they were still harvesting corn, and then they got pounded with the rain. So a lot of these ag fields never got planted, and they were just flat out dirt. So I thought was going to push deer more into certain areas that were planted, and it really didn't do that like I thought it was going to. So our plan was basically just to get there and just glass and see and try to get some kind of a pattern on these deer. And we never really were able to get on a pattern the first 2 days we were there before season. It's just like, I still have yet to figure out what these deer do out there. It's like there's no rhyme or reason to what they do. You would think, like in the Midwest, like Missouri and Iowa and stuff like that, you can get on a buck that's hitting a bean field every night. He's bedding up on this ridge, and he's coming in the bean field almost every night down the same runway. And it's just, I have not had that kind of luck out there.
It's funny you say that, because I've said it on here before. Our Kansas lease that we have, it's the same thing. The deer out there are so nomadic. I mean, everything that you think when it comes to whitetails, when you go out to our lease in Kansas, literally throw that shit right out the window.
Yep.
Because it is like, to me, I always equate it to they're like caribou. Caribou don't know where they're going until they get there. It's like literally just wander around, and you look out and it's like, what the heck is that deer doing out there at this time of the day in the middle of a CRP field that's only, shin high? You know what I mean? There's like no cover out there, and you're just hanging out. And it's like, what are you doing out there? And it just makes you scratch your head. I totally get that. So when it comes to where you guys are at, eastern North Dakota, and you said it's really open, what kind of native vegetation's out there? Like here in Michigan, we got a lot of acorns. There's apple trees. In areas there's a lot of apple trees, but what's out there that they're eating on that you can like maybe hone in on, since those ag fields, a lot of them didn't get planted.
Typically, it's a soybean and corn rotation, and probably 90% of the fields we hunt. I know they do plant some different crops and stuff that we're not really accustomed to here, but I think like barley's a big one up there. But it's usually corn and soybeans on rotation. But it seems like for some reason the corn always holds the bigger deer. I think it's a mix of the food and the cover. That's kind of goes along with like the cattail sloughs, any kind
Yeah.
of tall cover like that is their, I guess, timber really, because, they have such a lack of trees out there. But
Okay.
that's kind of what we hone in on there is just the corn and the soybean fields. I mean, there are some overgrown like cattle pastures and like I mentioned, the homesteads and stuff where they're bedding in. But this year was really weird because, as I mentioned, a lot of these fields were just bare dirt. The farmers had worked the weeds under and just to keep weed control and, to get ready to plant for next year.
Yep.
And these deer were literally out wandering, browsing around in these wide open dirt fields more than they actually were in the ag, which was really weird. Like I saw more deer in just wide open dirt fields than I did in soybeans all week.
Huh. Do you know why that was, or what the hell they were even eating out there?
No, I was trying to figure that out the whole time. It was so weird. I'm walking through these fields looking like the one field, there was not even anything, like there's no green little weeds growing or anything. It was just literally just like dirt, like a beach,
Okay.
There were some other dirt fields that kind of had some weeds up in them and stuff. I was assuming they were probably eating some of that stuff, but it was really weird.
Okay. Now, this might be a dumb question, and I don't know. And if you do know, maybe you don't know. But is there like white oak and red oak trees out there too? Is there a lot of acorn crop out there?
Not where we are. I'm sure there's parts of the state that get that, but where we're at, I mean, I don't even know the type of trees, if they're like willow trees or what, but they're just really nasty trees, and it's actually really hard to get a tree stand in. I think the stand that I shot this deer out of, I was only 7 or 8 foot up, just because they're so scraggly and just I don't even know what they are.
Okay. Now, in North Dakota, if I remember right, it's a bait state, right? You can bait
Yes, on private land.
on private land. You cannot on public.
I believe that's how that goes. Yeah.
Okay. And now, is there any rules, stipulations on how much you can put out, or anything like that?
Nope. It's a free for all, and we tend to take advantage of that.
Hey man, any way you can tip the scale in your direction,
Right.
I'm all for it. So you're going out there. You get out there 2 days early. What did you see in those 2 days of scouting? You said you didn't really get a pattern on anything, but did you see any shooters? Did you get any intel on anything that made you think like I need to go here and hone in on this?
The first night I set up, I just sat in a tree row on a slough that I thought it was surrounded by soybeans, and I mean it was probably I would guess a 200-acre bean field, and there was one slough right smack dab in the middle of it between 2 tree rows. And I just figured that was one that the deer would be bedding in, and I sat there all night with my spotting scope and just kind of watched from a distance. And there was a couple does come out, and there was like probably a mid 140s 8-point come out, and then actually ended up walking up the same tree row I was in. So I snuck out of there before he was able to get to me and blow out. But I really didn't see a ton of deer those first couple of days. Not really what I was anticipating. I seen some smaller bucks, but not really, not what I was looking for. And from there, I was just kind of relying on trail cameras.
Okay, so you did deploy some cameras then.
Yep, that was kind of the first tactic. Right when we first got there, it was just get some corn piles out and get cameras. I think we put probably 6 or 7 cameras out that first day and just kind of let them soak. And a few of them were cell cameras as well, so that was nice to be able to monitor them and not have to go in there and check them.
I gotcha. Yep. So got some cell cams out on some corn piles. Now, going back to, you said you saw a mid 140s 8-pointer. I mean, that's a big 8-pointer. What was did you have any goals? Did you have anything that you wanted to go out there and achieve, like as far as a size of a deer, age of a deer, anything like that? Or was it just like, anything that tickles my fancy, I'm going to let her eat? Like, what was your plan there?
I was kind of dead set on going after a really good one this year. I had been out there, like I mentioned, 5 years, this was my 5th year, and I've killed some pretty nice bucks out there. I think my best was a 141, actually my first year there. And then I was there last January, and I actually I seen a ton of deer. I ended up killing a 138-inch 10-point, I think he was. But I was having encounters with this really large 10-point with double split brows. And I mean, he was like persistent every night I was seeing him. And I really, I knew that buck lived. I knew the farmer had found both shed antlers off that deer. And I just had in my head, that is the deer I'm going after. I'm going there trying to find him, and just ran cameras all over the farm, hoping to come up with some pictures of that deer. And never did see him, but that's kind of the deer I was going for. I wanted to go there, and I wanted to get a big one this year.
Okay, so you had some preconceived like ideas that this is the deer. You're driving out there, however 16, 18 hours, whatever it is. You're thinking like I want to find this deer. The farmer found his sheds. I want to get on this buck. This is the one I'm going for. That was the game plan.
That was the plan. I mean, ever since last January when I had some encounters with them, I was actually at full draw at one point on that deer. I mean, it's been bugging me like I've got to get back there and I got to get after that deer because he was a really good one.
Okay. Now, did you name the deer at all, or get intimate with him at all?
No, I had some bad luck naming deer a couple of years ago down in Missouri. And ever since then, I said I'm just not naming deer anymore because it's just like a bad juju. I don't know. But
I got you. Yep. No, I get it. So you get down there, you deploy cameras, you're scouting. Did you ever get any intel on this buck, like knowing, okay, he's here, I got him?
I think it must have been opening night of their bow season, which we would have been there. That was the third day we were there. I finally got a picture of him at like 10 o'clock at night. He rolled in with another buck that was familiar from January. He was a big mature buck. I mean, we're assuming he was probably 7 or 8 years old, just a big tank and kind of a messed up rack. Won't score real high. They both come in together. And that's when I first knew, there was a good one in there, and it was time to get serious about hunting that area.
Okay, so when you got that picture, was that on a cell cam?
It was.
Okay, so when you get this picture, did you know that this buck was the buck that you had at full draw in January?
I thought it was. I'll fast forward a little bit. We found out it actually wasn't that deer, but he was very similar. He had the double split brows, looked nearly identical to that deer. So this whole time I'm thinking that that's the deer that was showing up.
Okay.
Yep.
Was it the same relative area that you were, had him in January?
It was about, I would guess, 3 miles away, but out there, 3 miles being so open is really not that far, especially when they all yard up kind of in the center of this property during the winter.
Okay.
So it basically, yes, the same general area.
I gotcha. Now, was he in an area where you could get, did you have to ground blind it, or could you get a tree stand in, or how was that laying out?
I originally set up, and there was like 3 tree rows in here, and it was an old standing cornfield that was all, I guess, beat down from the snow and the wind from last year. They never were able to harvest it. And I set up on the first tree row with a tree stand, and I was only able to get 7 or 8 foot up. And I originally went with that set, and that was good for anything south type wind, basically. But then as the week went on, we got some north winds coming in, and it was just a horrible spot to set. So I ended up brushing a ground blind in as well, so I was able to hunt both winds for that spot.
Okay, so you got this buck on camera. You set a stand. It's good for south winds. You knew north winds were coming. Now, you got him on the opener night, right? Is that what you said the first time?
I believe that's the first time he showed up, yeah.
Okay, so what are you thinking for the second day? First of all, how long are you going to be there?
We were there for 14 days, but we only had like, I think 10 days to hunt, 10 or 11 days to hunt.
Okay, so you had a couple travel days, and then you were there 2 days prior to do some scouting then.
Right.
Okay. So when you get the picture of this buck, was it like this buck or bust, or was it like, I'm going to keep my eye on him. If he starts getting more closer to daylight, then I'll pounce on him?
That's kind of what it was. I went in and hunted the very next day because I knew that he went in and this was the spot I was baiting. I had corn on, and I figured maybe, he found that corn pile, and there was actually a couple active scrapes right there as well. I figured, maybe he found that and he's going to, just start hitting the spot real heavy, in which he did, but it was all nighttime movement. And I was actually on a couple other nice bucks over on the other end of the farm. So I was kind of bouncing back and forth between the two for the most part of the week. And eventually towards the end of the week, I did just, throw all my chips in on him and decided he was the most consistent showing up anyways, even though they were nighttime movement. And I went all in on him.
Okay, so on the other side of the farm, you had some bucks that you were chasing. Did you have any close encounters with any of those other bucks?
No close encounters. It was one of those deals, and that's kind of, we were talking about the cell cams before we started recording here, and it was one of those deals where it was really cool to see, but I was kind of kicking myself in the ass because I was sitting on the deer I killed one night, and I had I think it was like 4 o'clock. They moved real early that night. 3 miles away in the other spot, I had like 155-inch 10-point and like 140-inch 8-point show up over there at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm sitting over here hunting this deer. It's like, man, what the heck? So then the next night I went over there and hunted those bucks, and then the buck I ended up killing daylighted at that spot that I wasn't at again. So I was like, oh, this is just,
cat and mouse,
horrible,
man.
but yeah.
That's crazy. So you didn't really have any close encounters, but you just kept jumping, and you probably felt like you were a step behind every time, didn't you?
I really felt like every time I would go somewhere, they were working around me. Yeah, they were jumping all over, and it was just and that's kind of why I got to the point where eventually I just had to make up my mind. And my cousin was there hunting with me, and I told him, like, hey man, I'm tearing down this other set, and I'm like putting all my chips in on this deer. Like, I'm cool with going home without a deer, but I mean, this is the deer I want, and if I'm going to kill a deer, this is the one I want. So I tore that other set down and pulled the camera out of there. I didn't want to know what was going on,
Yeah. So were you putting all your chips in on this trip, or could you come back later in the year if you needed to?
I was really dreading the fact of having to go back.
Yeah.
Because that drive is so miserable. But I mean, it was an option. I had maybe a week and a half I could have pulled out there later in the year and maybe towards the rut or something, but I really didn't want to have to do that.
Yeah, I totally get that. I'm about ready to make a trip to South Dakota next week for a pheasant hunt, and it's a 16-hour trek one way, and I really am dreading it. I do
It's a long drive.
Yep. Okay, so you tear that other stand down, you tear the camera down, you're like, I'm putting all my chips in on this deer or whatever's going to show up that, as a shooter, basically. Yep. So did you have... First of all, I guess, so this deer was all after dark. Now, were you ever thinking, like, I should start deploying cameras, like start casting a net, like figuring out where he's coming from and maybe getting him closer to daylight?
Yeah, and that was the biggest thing. I figured, that was one spot I was never able to sit on before season in glass and see where these deer were bedding over there. And the entire trip, I never really figured out where these deer were bedding. And I thought, maybe we should start running some cameras throughout this whole section. And it was really tough because, like I mentioned, it was that standing corn from the previous year, and it was really crunchy and really loud. And like, we actually started walking in the one day trying to make it back to the second tree row. And it was just so loud going through that corn. I told my cousin, I said, we got to get out of here. This is, we're just going to push every deer out of this entire section. We, just going to let them come to us. They're showing up on the camera. Like, we just need to wait it out. And, I think eventually, and there was a lot of cold weather coming in. So I knew, it was probably only gonna get better for movement in the daytime. And we just kind of waited it out. It was killing me not knowing exactly where they're laying down. And I wanted to know more about it. I wanted to scout it out, but I just knew it probably wasn't worth it.
Okay. So you're literally, you're setting anchor. You're just staying here and just figuring it out and just praying that it's going to happen.
Pretty much. And it's hard to do, if you got the whole season, if I were to live up there, that'd be a lot easier to do. But when you're there, I mean, 10 or 11 days is a pretty good time frame, but it's really not that long when you're, hunting one specific deer and just trying to get him on his feet in daylight. It's not a ton of time really. And it really just come down to luck with the weather, I think.
Yeah. And your head really starts playing games with you too. Like, shit, do I need to move? I haven't seen him yet. I need to move in closer. I need to get aggressive. I got to go home in a few days. Like, I totally get that side of things as well. I mean, just overthinking everything. And really, if you can be patient, I'm not going to say it's going to happen every time, but be patient. I mean, I always tell myself when I'm in the stand, good things come to those who wait. So it's like, be patient, and more times than not, it'll work out in your favor, whatever that might be. So you're sitting out. Did you ever have an encounter with this deer before you killed him?
No, I had never seen this deer on the hoof. I did have the one night that I was sitting over on the other end of the farm that he showed up. He daylighted the night before I killed him. He come in probably an hour and a half before dark with a few other small bucks, and I'm sitting over 3 miles away looking at my cell camera as this deer is just hanging out, and that was just killing me. Like, man, the trip was winding down at this point too, where we only had a few more days to hunt, and I'm just kind of like, well, that was probably my only opportunity at killing that deer, and there he goes, you know.
So this is before you pulled down the other stand and camera, and he daylights for the first time underneath your other stand.
Yep.
And so that was like the final straw. So, I mean, that probably helped out a little bit. Like, okay, he's finally daylight. Like, I need to get over there and spend all my time on then.
It did too. And that was, I mean, he was showing up all throughout the night for like the entire time I was there. I think there were only 2 nights after he initially showed up that he did not actually come in at all. I mean, he would show up about 10 o'clock every night, and he was there nonstop all night long until like 6 in the morning, and then he'd go back to bed. And, you know, I'd always try to watch like which direction he was leaving the camera to try to, you know, pinpoint where he was laying. And I could never figure it out because every time he left in a different direction. I didn't know if that was like wind dependent or what. But, you know, once he daylighted, that's when I said, okay, I'm tearing down the other set and going all in on him. Like, you know, if he showed up in daylight once, we've got similar weather conditions coming in, like maybe he's going to do it again.
Okay, so what do you think made him daylight that night?
I really don't know. I mean, because we had really good weather. I mean, it got better as the week went on, but it was pretty ideal weather for deer moving. I mean, like I said, the one night I had deer up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I really can't tell you.
So it wasn't like a, you know, a huge drop in temperature or, you know, a pressure system coming through or precipitation, anything like that. It was just more, was the weather pretty stagnant like the whole time you were there as far as temperature and wind? Like you had basically same thing every day in and out?
We had some variable winds coming out of different directions. I guess we had a little bit of everything for winds, but the first couple of days were really warm, and then it dipped down. But after that cold front come through and the temperatures dropped, it kind of stayed that way throughout the whole time. I mean, I think one morning we woke up and it was like 30 degrees or 28 or something. It was really cold. So I mean, it was great weather. The only thing I guess is maybe like there was a huge community scrape right there. And I mean, there was, I don't know, I probably had a dozen different bucks coming in and hitting that and showing their dominance and stuff. And I think as the week wore on, like, you know, they were in the midst of stripping velvet, and kind of their testosterone was raising, and these deer were hitting that scrape more and more and more. And it just seemed like he started showing up more and like maybe trying to just control the area.
Okay. Now, was there a big wind shift, like direction wise?
Not really. I mean, it was, I think it switched. It was like a southwest, and then cause I ended up shooting out of that tree stand. It was southwest the day before, and then I think it switched to like a southeast, but it wasn't anything too drastic.
Okay. So, I mean, it just one of those things, like you said, nomadic, and just, you know, decided to get out of his bed. Who knows? A coyote could have kicked him out of his bed and just got him up a little earlier, or another hunter or something like that, and, you know, just got him up a little sooner, and there he is.
Yeah. It was, you know, I've been kind of puzzled trying to figure the whole thing out. I almost wanted to go back after I shot him to just, you know, to scout the area and try to learn about how he was living in there. And I never did, but I kind of wish I would have done that.
Okay, so I guess there's something I didn't clarify before, but were you guys hunting mornings or was it all evenings?
It was all evenings. Early season out there, it's and you know, I guess early season really anywhere. I don't like to hunt a ton of mornings, especially in ag country, because
sure.
You know, they're out feeding still in the mornings. They can see it coming, and especially out there, I mean, they can see it coming from miles away, and it's really tough to get away with it out there.
Okay, so all evenings. So now he daylights. You rip the other stand down that you were in 3 miles away, and the camera. You're like, forget this stand. You're going to go to the other one and ride the hole. So you go in the first evening, you know, the night after he daylights. What happens?
So we had a weather front come in, a rain front come in that day. And the temperature stayed the same. The wind was pretty much the same, but we had some precipitation come in. It was at some points in the day, I guess it was pouring pretty decent, but it was kind of just a consistent, like a dew or a mist, really. And it was getting kind of foggy out. And I think it was probably 5 o'clock. I seen my first 2 deer, and the wind, it was coming out of the southeast that night, which was a little hairy from where these deer were coming from. And I I happened to look up and there was 2 does. I mean, I was only 8 foot up in the tree, and I got 2 does at like 20 yards. They had me pegged, and they're just looking at me. And I know they winded me. They seen me, and they knew I was in there, and they were standing in that tall corn, and they had never actually blew at me, but they took off running and made a huge ruckus going through that corn. And I'm like, well, that's probably not really good, you know? And then those were the only 2 deer I seen until an hour before dark. I was just kind of sitting there and, like, you know, had my head like facing down, kind of like in my lap, basically, you know, just relaxing. And I happened to look up, and I just see a flash of a deer coming through, and like, I knew it was him. Like, I could just see his rack, and there's no denying it was him. And so I go over to grab my bow and like put my release on, and he's at 17 yards. And within 30 seconds from first seeing this deer, I had an arrow in him.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it happened so fast. I didn't have time to, you know, get excited or get the shakes or anything. It was like, I seen him, I grabbed my bow, put my eyes back on him, and pulled back and put an arrow in him. So,
okay, just to back up real quick, you're hunting a field edge? Is that correct?
That's pretty much what it is. It was a series of tree rows, and they were spaced, I would guess, about 250 yards apart. There was like, I don't know, maybe 4 of them. And I was on the southernmost tree row, and to the north, it was all that standing corn.
Okay.
In between all the tree rows. And then I was on the edge of like a maybe 50 yard wide or probably 60 yard wide grown up cattle pasture that kind of fed down into a slough bottom. And then on the other side of that was all open dirt, an open dirt ag field.
I got you. Okay. So that makes sense. I was trying to picture, like, were you sitting, you know, 20, 30 yards off of field edge in like a timber, you know, in the timber and watching these deer on the cornfield edge, or that's what I was trying to
yeah, it was pretty much wide open, really.
Okay.
Both sides, yeah.
Gotcha. So this deer shows up, I mean, within 30 seconds, you got an arrow in him. So, yeah. I mean, pretty anticlimactic, I guess, right? I mean, shows up, you grab your bow, turn around, release on, shoot him, runs off. Like, so I guess what's your thought process from there?
So initially, like, you know, your very first reaction to watching the arrow hit the deer, I was like, okay, that I smoked him. You know, he's done. I thought it was a heart shot. And he ran off like 10, 15 yards, and he just stopped. I'm like, all right, so is he tipping over or what? And he's just standing there, and then he starts wagging his tail. I'm like, okay, that's not good. And then he started walking over to the right, I guess over towards like the slough bottom, and there's that big scrape tree that was over there, and he starts walking over that way. And at that point, I'm thinking, okay, I need to put another arrow in this deer. So I'm knocking another arrow, and I ranged him. I think he was at 40 yards at that point. And I was going to, you know, go to draw on him and put another arrow, and it was just a bad angle. And then he was walking, and he got behind that bush. I was never able to get a second shot at him. And he kind of stood behind this tree that they were scraping around for, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes. He just stood there. He never moved.
Could you see a hole in him?
I couldn't really see the hole in him. I could just see like the back half of his body.
Okay.
I actually thought at one point that when I first shot him, I thought he carried the arrow off with him. We ended up finding out that the arrow passed through and was laying right where I shot him. But you know, it's hard to see when things happen that fast. You're looking at so many different things, trying to figure it out. And
right.
I couldn't really tell. But so I got behind that tree, and he stood there, and a doe come in and like walked right to him. And then he like freaked out, and he like took a couple jumps over, and she come running back at me. And that's when he bedded down. And I could just barely see him through this tree. Like it was obviously full of leaves and stuff. And I'm looking through with my binoculars, and he's still only at like 40 yards. And I'm just trying to see what he's doing. And he finally bedded up there. And I can just see his rack like turning back and forth. He's looking around. I'm freaking out, you know, coming unglued. Like, oh man, I just wounded the biggest buck I've ever shot in my life. And maybe 20 minutes went by, and he put his head down. And he had his head down for probably 5 minutes. You know, I'm texting all my buddies, and actually at one point I called one of my buddies, just, you know, like, dude, what do I do? You know, I got this giant standing out here or laying out here, and I don't know if he's dead or not. Do I try to get out of the stand and put another arrow in him? And I had a good cover wind, so it was kind of an option, but I just didn't want to bump him, you know?
Right.
And I watched him for the next hour, right up till dark almost. And so his head was down, and then he had his head down for about 20 minutes or so, and he ended up picking his head back up, and he's looking around again. And I'm just, it was just a miserable hour there just watching this deer. And then I kind of come to the conclusion that I just need to, sneak out of here before dark, as quiet as I can, and get back to the truck, get to the house, and, probably let this deer sit either till midnight or till morning. And when I left, I believe he was probably expired at that point because his head was down and he hadn't moved in a little while, but I wasn't sure of it. And we made the call just to wait till morning on it.
Yep. Now, were you thinking in the tree the whole time? Are you thinking gut or liver shot or, back? You thought you smoked him, but are you thinking now, like, maybe a little far back?
That's what I was thinking. I knew, it looked like a really good shot. I guess if it turns out he was quartering a little towards me that I didn't realize. And but it ended up going through the liver, and I kind of started telling myself, like, that's a liver shot the way he's acting, and it wasn't that far back to be up in the gut, so I kind of convinced myself it was gonna be a liver shot.
Okay, I got you. So you back out, you wait till morning. What's the plan then?
Well, we got back to the house that night and kind of just talked it over and over and over, and at one point we were really close to going in there at midnight, and I've bumped deer out of their beds before tracking them, and I've had buddies lose deer that way and stuff, and I just knew it wasn't worth it. I figured if he's dead now, he's gonna be dead in the morning. I'm just hoping the coyotes don't get to him, and I didn't sleep at all that night. I was up, the cell camera, he was bedded up 20 yards from my cell camera. It wasn't facing his direction, but I just figured, maybe I'd see some coyotes come in there or something. And it was weird because that entire night there was I think only one deer come in that entire night. And normally, I would have 10 plus different deer coming in there every night, all night long, and just no deer coming that night. So it just made me think okay, maybe he's dead there, and for some reason no deer want to come in.
Right.
So our plan was to go in there first thing in the morning. Like I said, I didn't sleep at all. I was up super early. And we were basically parked out at the spot I would park there at first light, and just kind of let the sun come up a little bit. And I guess there wasn't much of a sun because it was super foggy. It was still kind of misty the next morning. And we just kind of crept our way in there, and I knew right where he was laying the night before. And I nocked an arrow, and I just started creeping up real slow, and got to the point where I could see a part of them, and I'm ready to basically draw on this deer if I got to put another arrow on him. And I crept kind of around this tall patch of grass, and he was still bedded up, and you could tell he was expired. So that was it.
That's crazy, man. So
he never left that bed.
He didn't move after that. So you think he probably expired before you left the stand, probably?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was done by the time I actually walked out of there the night before, but it just wasn't worth the risk,
Yep. Coyotes or anything get to him?
No. I was pretty lucky with that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of coyotes in the area, and I was glad to see that nothing got to him.
That's crazy, man. Well, that's sweet. Now, explain him a little bit. How big was he?
He's a good one. Definitely my best. He's got 14 scoreable points, double split brows. He's got a big split G2 on his left side. He's got 5-inch bases, 22-inch beams.
Jeez.
He's 17.5 wide. He's got nearly 11-inch G2s. He's got it all, man. Stud. Yeah, he does. He's an awesome buck, and I rough scored him just over 164.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Congrats, buddy. That's awesome.
Thank you.
That's so cool. Now, that's just crazy. You kill your best buck. You kicked off 2020 season really good, even though we've had a shitty year. So that's, that makes me feel better that we're going to have somewhat of a good season this year, hopefully.
Yeah, I think we're going to come out swinging in the second half here.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you can cruise through the fall now. Like the weight's lifted, the monkey's off your back. Let's just have fun now.
Dude, it really is too. And that was kind of the biggest thing for me going on this trip. And, we've been so busy with Rek, just working around the clock on everything. And I really didn't know how much time I was going to have to hunt this year. Like I said, I could have squeezed another trip out there if I had to. And my dad drew an Iowa tag this year, his first ever. And we've got some really nice deer showing up out there. And I was really hoping to be able to, tag out North Dakota and be able to spend the rut with him in Iowa and sit behind a camera and hopefully film him kill a deer. So for me to get this one tagged and to be able to go spend November with my dad, that was really cool.
Yeah, that'll be really cool. I'm jealous you're going to Iowa. I want to go back.
Yeah, we're gonna have to call you Mr. Iowa.
No, I haven't done enough to get that nickname yet. So
I don't know. You've kind of got the title right now.
Oh, it was a good one. I will say that.
Yep.
Well, cool, man. That's freaking sweet. I mean, what a giant. What a story. Really cool buck. I mean, there's something I want to get into before we do wrap this up, and it's something about cell cams. Now, there's a lot of people out there, the Pope and Young Club and everything, they said, about entering their, into the record books and everything. If this deer, is on cell cam, then they won't enter it and whatnot. I guess I want to get your opinion on the cell cams. I mean, this deer showed up when you were in a different stand 3 miles away, and that intel gave you, the last piece where you're like, okay, I need to get in there. Now, I guess, what's your take on cell cams?
Man, I love them. This is my first year ever running them, and especially out there, we're hiking back in so far, even though it's just all flat land and ag. It's we're walking a mile back into these sets, and normally we check our cameras every morning just to see what's gonna be the hot spot to sit that night. And with having the cell cameras in there, it's so less intrusive. It's so much less physically demanding. You're not hiking back into these spots every day. And I think my biggest thing I like about them is just that they're you don't have to go put scent on the ground. You don't have to go risk bumping deer out of there. You just what's going on all the time, and it's gonna be a game changer, I think, for scouting and especially with trips like this, scouting on the fly.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm in the same boat. Like I agree with you. I've got 2 cell cams. I started running my first cell cam last year, and honestly, my biggest thing with the cell cams was here in Michigan. My 1 acre farm, there's 2 sections of woods on the 1 acre farm. There's a 1 acre section, and then across the road, which is the same farm, there's a 4 acre section. So 2 really small timber plots. And my thing was, I want to put a cell cam in each timber and usually I put it on the most active scrape that I can find in there, and just monitor. And my biggest thing is, what I'm monitoring is, yes, obviously I want to know if what's in there and, when the time to strike is. And I don't want to have to go in there because, when you get in those little woodlots like that, there's no room for error. It's like you get 30 yards from, because I'm coming in from ag fields, wide open ag fields on both pieces of timber. So it's like these deer see you coming from a mile away.
Yep.
My biggest thing is, like, I like to know going, like, the 1 acre especially, I wake up and I got cell cam pictures. I like knowing, like, when I'm walking in, I know within 40 seconds if there's a deer there or not. So I kind of use it as, like, am I going to bump deer out? Now, if I'm walking in and a deer starts pinging where there's something in there, I might hold up a little bit. Even if it's a little doe, whatever, I don't want to bump deer, if I can help it. That's kind of the way I am. And honestly, I like them. I really do. There probably is a point where it's like too far where, I could see with maybe a gun hunter or something. It's like, well, shit, he's on the other side of the field right now. I got to go over there and get a 200-yard shot off or whatever. Like, okay, that might be a little, not ethical, but.
And that's what I was just going to say too. I think, that's probably a lot of the reason why, the Boone and Crockett Club or whatever has put out that, they're not going to acknowledge trophies that cell cameras were used to take. And I think a lot of that's probably maybe geared towards, gun hunting because, like I had those deer showing up while I was in a different stand. Had it been rifle season, I could have easily hopped in the truck, drove over there, put on a short stock and put a bullet in one of those deer. And I mean, there's definitely some advantages to be had with the cell cameras, and I guess each person's probably going to have their own take on it,
For
if
sure,
it's fair or not. But
and the way I look at it too is like, we're playing an away game every time we set foot in the outdoors with these whitetails or any animal. You know, they live there 24/7. This is their home. They know the ins and outs. They bed in certain areas knowing that they're safe and they can get out of there. We don't know that. You know what I mean? As much as we think that we know about deer and everything, I think any way we can tip the scale in our direction, in ethical reasons, you know what I mean? Like not shining deer and going out and killing deer. That's
Right.
not ethical. But like any way that you can, get a piece of the puzzle or, tip the scale a little bit in your favor. I don't think, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I've ever had like 100% I know I'm going to kill this deer tonight. You know what I mean? Like ever, like
it's never a guarantee. And,
never a guarantee.
We're always on their home turf, whether,
Yes.
no matter what advantage, whatever legal advantage you put in your favor,
Yes.
you're always on their turf.
A great example is this summer here in Michigan on one of my farms. I've got a buck. I got a couple good bucks, but this big 9-pointer. He's a good buck. Filmed him all year in the hayfield and velvet and everything. Velvet came off. Getting daylight pictures of him on 2 different areas of the farm, surrounding bedding. That shift happened and he was like showing up in daylight. So I'm like, okay, perfect. This is gonna be sweet. I think I could get a little pattern on him maybe. And then that was 2 weeks ago. The 14th was the last daylight picture got of him. Checked the cameras today. Nowhere on the farm. Like nothing. He's not there anymore. No daylight pictures, no dark pictures. Come to find out the neighbors have a picture of him and it's dark. It's after dark. So it's like literally, I mean, just when you think you have a pattern, you really don't. Like in where I'm at in my scenario right now, it's so hard to pattern deer here in Michigan in my scenario where I'm at, unless you got a big track where you can kind of do that. But still, even like in all the years that I've been filming with Chris and Casey, like honestly, I can maybe remember, let me think, like maybe one deer that we knew he was going to do a certain thing just about every night. But it was never like, oh, yep, for sure, 7 o'clock tonight, he's going to show up on this food plot. Never once have we had that,
They're just so unpredictable. I mean, there's so many variables that go into it. Just even with the weather, or human pressure, predator pressure, or you just there's so many things out there. I don't think a cell phone camera is really going to put it at an unfair advantage. I mean, it definitely is going to help for sure. I mean, there's ways it's going to help out, but I don't think by any means is that making it a guarantee you're going to go in and kill these deer.
Yeah. Well, and it's something you did. You got that picture of him, which was, awesome intel you got. But that gave you like, okay, now it's time to strike. I got to go. Let's go. Let's get in there and get it done. That's something that in the past, I would have been probably a little more passive on. Like, okay, I've got a little bit of time maybe. Like, I'm going to sit back. Nope. This year, if I get any sort of intel or see a buck or kick a buck out of his bed or anything like that, I get any sort of intel, I'm pouncing right now. I'm getting aggressive. That's one thing I'm definitely going to change this year. I'm going really mobile this year, running gunning a lot and just getting aggressive and starting to learn more. I want to learn more, and I want to learn more at a expedited pace, I guess you could say. Like I want to get in there and just fail and learn. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, especially here in Michigan too, like you mentioned on some large tracks and stuff, you kind of you can play it a little safer and kind of play the season out and wait for them. But I mean, I've hunted a lot of different states now, and we've got to have some of the most pressured whitetails in the country here in Michigan, and I think when they're in your piece or on your property, you just gotta get in there and roll the dice while you can.
Yep, definitely. Well, cool, man. I want to wrap this baby up, and I want to thank you for coming on and doing this. And do a little plug here for Rek. If anybody wants to know any more information about Rek, where can they buy him? Where can they find that information out? This is the time. Hit him with it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me on here, man. I always like getting on and talking with you. But you can find Rek Broadheads on Instagram and Facebook at Rek_Broadheads, and that is REK. Or we're available for sale, factory direct only at the moment at www.rekbroadheads.com.
Cool, man. Well, thank you very much. Hopefully Rek keeps climbing the way I see it climbing, and people are buying it and being successful. I hope like hell I have a picture to send to you this weekend of a doe, a buck, something, a coyote. I don't care. I just can't wait to put this broadhead to use. So
I'll be waiting for it, buddy.
I appreciate it, man. Well, you have a good evening and good luck this fall.
You too. Best of luck.
All right, there you have it. Awesome interview with Matt Tagget. Thanks again to Matt coming on to talk about that story with his deer. I mean, just a giant, in the mid 160s. What a stud, definitely, especially for early September. I mean, great buck. A great buck anywhere, really. Let's be honest. He's just an awesome deer. So thank you guys for all the support. Remember to go to iTunes, leave a 5-star rating, leave a review. Be ethical out there this fall and shoot straight. So we'll be right back here next week on the Fall Podcast. Thank you, guys.